The virus comes to a cell. The protein allows it to attach to the cell. The nucleic acid goes inside the cell. There's a nucleic acid in the middle that provides the information to make new molecules. It gets in the cell, it takes over the cell's machinery, and makes more and more of itself. So you get hundreds or even thousands of copies.
The virus is now present in 54 countries worldwide. All we can do now.
Forget the conspiracy. Listen to our government agencies. These guys are telling the truth. You know, there's no conspiracy here, folks. Just get your damn vaccine.
You know, it's been said that a demonstration in Thursday has been spread that the Americans have released the virus.
I went downtown today in the afternoon, and I didn't see a single soul.
Have you had the vaccination?
No.
Have you had it 81-9? Tell me!
No.
I got the 2 shots of the vaccine and I got boosters. So I got 3 shots. So now people are wondering, are they going to have to get a 4th shot? Will we need a 4th shot of another booster to keep our immunity up?
I think we will.
I don't need it. I don't need it. I definitely don't need it. I 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 need it!
Excitement continues to build as city centers across the globe prepare for the 20th anniversary of Unification Day.
Thousands line up at the site of the Great Accord, celebrating the formation of the Advent Coalition.
Keeping with their promise to humanity,
12 new gene therapy clinics will be opening in select cities by the end of the new year.
One of the things that I believe the entire world is facing, but we certainly are facing it in a very, very disconcerting way in the United States, is the amount of disinformation that is accompanying what should be a problem where everyone pulls together against a common enemy, which is the virus. We have disinformation that is entirely destructive to a comprehensive public health endeavor. And I'm not sure how we're going to counter that except by getting out as much correct information as we possibly can and use the social media in a positive way as opposed to in the somewhat destructive way that it is being used right now.
Despite the attempted attack by French elements, operations at the new facility in Paris thankfully remain unaffected.
In response to the unprovoked intrusion on the eve of our most beloved celebration, the speaker reaches out to us.
A small number of dissidents again repeat the mistakes of the old world.
Striking as we celebrate a benevolent savior who time and again offers only friendship and compassion.
Yet these trivial actions could never break the bond between humanity and the elders.
Peacekeeping forces have already made several preemptive arrests of known collaborators. Advent again assures all citizens that today's celebrations will continue as planned.
Perfect.
What's wrong?
Nothing really. I just feel that I need something stronger.
If you have a problem, don't hesitate to ask for assistance.
Yes, thank you, I'll be all right.
Call 348-FUN. What's wrong?
Never mind.
We are probably one of the last generations of Homo sapiens, because in the coming generations, we will learn how to engineer bodies and brains and minds.
What's wrong?
I need something stronger.
Take 4 red capsules. In 10 minutes, take 2 more. Help is on the way.
Now, how exactly will the future masters of the planet look like? This will be decided by the people who own the data.
But ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, the future is already here. The future has begun. It's a new system. It changes us because it's a fusion of our physical, digital, and biological spheres. It's an integration of those spheres. Just think of sensors planted into our brains. The opportunities are immense. And we have to prepare ourselves already now.
Now, why is data so important? It's important because we've reached the point when we can hack not just computers, we can hack human beings and other organisms. Now, what do you need in order to hack a human being? You need 2 things. You need a lot of computing power, and you need a lot of data, especially biometric data. But control of data might enable human elites to do something even more radical than just build digital dictatorships. By hacking organisms, elites may gain the power to re-engineer the future of life itself. Because once you can hack something, you can usually also engineer it. All of life, for 4 billion years, dinosaurs, amoebas, tomatoes, humans, all of life was subject to the laws of natural selection and to the laws of organic biochemistry. But this is now about to change. Science is replacing evolution by natural selection with evolution by intelligent design. Not the intelligent design of some god above the clouds, but our intelligent design and the intelligent design of our clouds. The IBM cloud, the Microsoft cloud, these are the new driving forces of evolution. And at the same time, science may enable life, after being confined for 4 billion years to the limited realm of organic compounds, science may enable life to break out into the inorganic realm.
I ran for president, really and truly, and even my supporters were not critical of it, thought the reasons I exposed, I laid out why I was running, maybe they weren't such a good idea. I said I was running for 3 reasons from the very beginning. 1, to restore the soul of America, this idea of decency, honor, treating people with respect, literally treating people with respect.
What a stupid son of a bitch.
Literally treating people with respect.
And there was no way we were ever going to unite Ukraine. I mean, excuse me, Iraq, Afghanistan. No way that was going to happen.
You know you're a fucking mumbling, stuttering little fuck. You know that?
Because you can't build a wall high enough to keep out a vaccine. The vaccine can stop the spread of these diseases. Putin may circle Kyiv with tanks, but he'll never gain the hearts and souls of the Iranian people. He'll never extinguish their love of freedom, and he will never weaken the resolve of the free world. Today, I'm announcing the United States is targeting the main artery of Russia's economy. We're banning all imports of Russian oil and gas and energy. That means Russian oil will no longer be acceptable at U.S. ports, and the American people will deal another powerful blow to Putin's war machine.
How do we get to the place where, Putin decides he's gonna just invade Russia. Nothing like this has happened since World War II.
It's not clear what may have been taken, and no arrests have been made.
A 71-year-old man is accused of inappropriately touching a 12-year-old girl at the Walmart in West Mifflin Sunday afternoon.
I announced the plan to supercharge the cancer moonshot that President Obama asked me to lead 6 years ago. Our goal is to cut cancer death rates by at least 50% over the next 25 years, and I think we can do better than that. Turn cancers from death sentences into treatable diseases. More support for patients and their families. To get there, I call on Congress to fund what I call ARPA-H, Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health. Patterned after DARPA and the Defense Department. Projects that led in DARPA to the internet, GPS, and so much more to make our forces more safer and be able to wage war with more clarity. ARPA will have a singular purpose: to drive breakthroughs in cancer, Alzheimer's and diabetes, and more.
The refugee system is essentially not set up for this, that it will collapse. It's an improvised system that can work for maybe 2 weeks, but not indefinitely. And I'm wondering what the United States is going to do more specifically to set up a permanent infrastructure. And relatedly, is the United States willing to make a specific allocation for Ukrainian refugees? And for President Duda, I wanted to know if you think, and if you asked the United States to specifically accept more refugees.
Okay. A friend in need is a friend indeed.
Okay,
I want to give you.
A friend in need is a friend indeed.
A friend in need's a friend indeed. A friend with weed is better. A friend with breasts and all the rest. A friend who's dressed in leather. A friend in need's a friend indeed. A friend who'll tease is better. Our thoughts compressed, which makes us blessed and makes for stormy weather.
Candidate and former Vice President Joe Biden finds himself in more hot water this week. Just confirmed, a Ukrainian court ordered Joe Biden to be formally listed in a criminal case. The crime? The alleged firing of Ukraine's former Prosecutor General Viktor Shokin in exchange for dropping an investigation into Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, and the company for which he was a board member, Burisma Oil. Shokin formally called for an investigation into his firing back in February of 2020, claiming the Ukrainian government at the time relieved Shokin of his post in exchange for $1 billion in loan guarantees promised by Biden, a bribe Biden himself admitted to doing.
Prosecutor's not fired. You're not getting the money. Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired.
But at the time Shokin called for this case back in February, the courts listed one of the defendants as an unnamed American, an individual widely understood to be Joe Biden, Obama's Ukraine point man. But Biden was never formally named. Now, the courts have ruled it is improper to conceal Biden's name and that there is sufficient evidence to proceed with an investigation. The ruling cannot be appealed. Another key development in this story is the release of a series of telephone conversations that has garnered major questions. Andrei Derkach, a member of parliament in Ukraine, in a press conference Tuesday released what he says appear to be voice recordings of then Secretary of State John Kerry, Vice President Joe Biden, and then President of Ukraine Poroshenko, discussing the Burisma case and discussing the removal of Viktor Shokin. Neither Kerry, Biden, nor Poroshenko have affirmed the verity of these recordings. The recordings appear to have been leaked from government officials and whistleblowers, but are currently being verified. Ukrainian President Zelensky stated he anticipates more developments over the course of the summer and says the case could qualify as high treason. Candidate Biden has yet to respond to this latest development. Chanel Rion, One American News, the White House.
I'm sick of this stuff. We have to talk about it because the American people think the reason for inflation is government spending more money. Simply not true. Make no mistake, inflation is largely the fault of Putin.
Liar! Listen. Liar!
Biden said he's going to stop the Keystone Pipeline, and I did. And that's the reason prices went up. Folks, let's get something straight here. The Keystone Pipeline was 2 years away and had been 2% finished. Give me a break. Give me a break. Never forget what we've accomplished together so far. It will blow up.
Inflation goes up today. The president's statement blames the Putin price hike. Are you guys just going to start blaming Putin for everything until the midterms?
Well, we've seen the price of gas go up at least 75 cents since President Putin lined up troops on the border of Ukraine.
The White House keeps telling us prices are going to come down. They're going to come down. But that was before the war in Ukraine. Yeah. And when the price of gas goes up, the price of everything goes up. Absolutely.
And last month, the statement didn't mention the Putin price hike. It mentioned inflation because of the pandemic. Why is that?
Lies. Oh, lies!
We have more oil than anybody, okay? And it's an incredible thing that it's happened over the last few years, a lot of great things, and you're paying, what, $2 a gallon for your gasoline? That's okay. You know what that's like? That's like a tax cut. That's bigger than a tax cut. If Biden got in, you'd be paying $7, $8, $9. Didn't they say, get rid of your car?
Prices at some local gas stations, they're way above the average. Well, across the street from the Beverly Center, one of the most expensive places in LA, drivers are paying this. Nearly $7 for regular unleaded, nearly $8 for premium. Drivers said they were surprised and not in a good way.
You guys are pushing electric vehicles today. This is a president who always talks about the power of our example. Mm-hmm. Does he own an electric vehicle?
Presidents of the United States don't do a lot of driving.
He's posted videos where he's revving the engine of his Corvette in Wilmington. He owns cars.
And he also has driven electric vehicles as president, as to give a model to the rest of the country.
Does he own one?
I think the president's record on this is clear, Peter. Presidents of the United States, current and when they are no longer, typically are not doing a lot of driving.
If I can ask you, Madam Vice President, President Biden has said that Americans will feel some pain for the sake of defending freedom and liberty, but there does seem to be no end game in sight. How long should Americans expect? How long should we be bracing for this really sort of historic inflation and some unprecedented gas prices?
Sure. In terms of the discussions that the President, Johannes, and I had, they ranged in subject, including the issue of the Black Sea, and I'll let him explain in more detail as he would like. But we are
screwed. Since Putin began his military buildup on Ukrainian borders, just since then, the price of the gas at the pump in America went up 75 cents. And with this action, it's going to go up further. I'm going to do everything I can to minimize Putin's price hike here at home. In coordination with our partners, we've already announced that we're releasing 60 million barrels of oil from our joint oil reserves. Half of that, 30 million, is coming from the United States. And we're taking steps to ensure the reliable supply of global energy. We're also going to keep working with every tool at our disposal to protect American families and businesses.
That stings, but a clean conscience is worth $1 or $2. I'm willing to pay.
It's gonna go up. Can't do much right now. Russia's responsible.
I'm willing to pay $4 a gallon. Hell, I'll pay $15 a gallon because I drive a Tesla.
You fuckers want a reality check? I'm gonna give you a reality check. $1,052 to fill a semi-truck in Tennessee. It is currently, right now, $5.15 a gallon. What the fuck are y'all gonna do next month when your gallon of milk costs $11? You hear that? That's the only way you get milk. Reefer units, refrigerated trailers. It ain't like y'all gonna do without. Y'all better wake the fuck up.
Well, I only have a minute left. Let me ask you, does Ukraine have chemical or biological weapons?
Ukraine has biological research facilities, which, in fact, we are now quite concerned Russian troops, Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of. So we are working with the Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach.
I'm sure you're aware that the Russian propaganda groups are already putting out there all kinds of information about how they've uncovered a plot by the Ukrainians to release biological weapons in the country and with NATO's coordination. If there's a biological or chemical weapon incident or attack inside of Ukraine, is there any doubt in your mind that 100% it would be the Russians that would be behind it?
There is no doubt in my mind, Senator, and it is classic Russian technique to blame on the other guy what they're planning to do themselves.
Top secret U.S. bioweapons labs were used in Ukraine to infect Russia and Europe as well. Not only were they developing bioweapons, viruses, bacteria in Ukraine and deploying it to Russia, but they were testing it, field testing it on the people of Ukraine as well. We have the undeniable proof that not only this was happening, but this has been happening for quite some time. It turns out that the U.S. military routinely produces deadly viruses and bioweapons worldwide and deploys them on innocent civilians. We're going to be looking at Ukraine, Russia, Europe, also the biolabs in Africa responsible for the Ebola outbreak. But it turns out that just about every outbreak in the world right now comes from a U.S. bioweapons lab, including the measles that hit the United States. They've been doing this for so long that they now know the cost of killing people per person. We're going to be looking at the DoD documents. We're going to be looking at the cost per death, as little as 29 cents per person. Imagine all the people that you can kill for the price of a tank of gas these days. Turns out you can pretty much wipe out a city with their bioweapons. Look at this document. City attack. Attack with yellow fever infected mosquitoes. The cost of attacking an urban area covertly with yellow fever was estimated. Notice how they use the word covertly, because they do this all the time, and they make it look like natural causes. Just like the pandemic. Oh, it came from a bat, from a cave, from the wet market, the meat market. And so when we look at what's happening right now in the news, these bioweapons labs are obviously a big concern.
There's new hope in the fight against the mosquito-borne illness Japanese encephalitis. Live to Sunrise reporter Nathan Curry in Melbourne now. Nathan, the government is drawing up a national plan.
They are, Nat. It's good news because this is becoming pretty serious. They'll discuss it at National Cabinet today, but they're pumping almost $69 million into this, so it's clear they're taking it very seriously, particularly because 2 Australians have now died from it, and it's been detected in northern Victoria. This is the first time that we've ever seen it this far south, so they're becoming increasingly concerned about it. The plan involves trying to slow the spread of this, but also to roll out vaccinations. Unlike what we saw when COVID started 2 years ago, a vaccine is already in existence and it is highly effective. So the government has ordered 130,000 doses of it. Urgent doses have already arrived and they're sending them straight to the north of Victoria because the virus has been detected in pig farms. Even though mosquitoes transmit it, it's been detected in pigs, so they know it's up there. So the pig farmers up there, they're the first people to receive the vaccine. They can get it free from their GP, but hopefully after National Cabinet today we'll learn what's next for the rollout, Nat.
And it turns out that this has become like a franchise operation, like a McDonald's. Standard operating procedure, standard budget, standard layout, standard equipment. The management style is the same. And essentially they just receive orders. Do this, do that. And they release a Happy Meal. They introduce biotoxins into the food supply, into the water supply, into the air. Essentially, they could just engineer a car to drive through a city and disperse bioweapons through the exhaust. And essentially, these are the points of sale or the points of deployment for this biological inventory. That is, of course, a contravention to the UN Bioweapons Convention. And deploying bioweapons is a war crime. Now, of course, they don't prosecute war criminals out there. They prosecute journalists instead. They censor you, they shut you down. But everybody's talking about this right now, just like they've been talking about the pandemic, the vaccines. Who's going to prosecute Pfizer for all of these deaths? Who's going to prosecute this New World Order? Who's going to prosecute this corrupt system?
Could we have improved? Well, you know, I think I can tell you where I was when the CNN feed came that it was 95% effective, the vaccine. So many of us wanted to be hopeful. So many of us wanted to say, okay, this is our ticket out, right? Now we're done. So I think we had perhaps too little caution and too much optimism for some good things that came our way. I really do. I think all of us wanted this to be done. Nobody said waning when you know, oh, this vaccine's going to work. Oh, well, maybe it'll work, it'll wear off. Nobody said, well, what if the next variant it's not as potent against the next variant.
It does concern us when there are deaths at home. From the few reports that I've been seeing, we're seeing reports of people having an illness for a short period and then sudden deaths, and we've reported about those earlier on. That's been reported elsewhere in Australia, around the world, where it's myocarditis, which I think I've referred to on a previous occasion. But we are certainly keeping a close eye on those, particularly when there are deaths. We investigate those particularly if there's anyone who's died at home.
A heat wave like no other.
The prospect of hotter weather, we didn't think of it as catastrophic hotter weather, we thought of it as hotter weather, and I don't think there are too many people that didn't.
719 people died suddenly. The wait time for an ambulance, hours.
Paramedics overworked. But whose fault is it when someone dies of extreme heat?
Warnings were there, to be sure, and we did our best under the circumstances.
But the BC Liberals don't think so. The opposition says the province failed to warn the public of just how dangerous the heat could be.
But a Virginia woman says she believes her mother died as a result of the vaccine.
A woman passed away several days after getting her second Moderna vaccine.
The death of an Ionia County wife and mother.
They found her dead in her room.
I was in full-body convulsions.
Blood clots.
Flash pulmonary edema caused by anaphylaxis.
Abnormal clotting or pulmonary emboli.
Every bone and muscle in my body was shaking.
Her platelet levels had fallen.
She died. He died.
Fell into a coma.
Died Wednesday.
For those who think the Great Reset is not going to control every aspect of your life, let me give you a couple of things. They are now taking the next step to shape global, regional, and industry agendas, end quote. With a new digital ID system. Under the framework, the WEF proposes collecting data from many aspects of people's everyday lives. That's a quote. Through their devices, telecommunication networks, and third-party service providers. The WEF suggests that this data collection dragnet would allow a digital ID. Now listen to this, it's very narrow. It would allow a digital ID to scoop up data on people's online behavior, purchase history, network usage, credit history, biometrics, names, national identity numbers, and medical history. Plus your travel history, social accounts, e-government accounts, bank accounts, energy uses, health stats, education, and I love this one, and more. What's left? Once the digital ID has access to this huge, highly personal set of data, the WEF proposes using it to decide whether users are allowed to, quote, own and use devices, quote, open bank accounts, quote, carry out online financial transactions, quote, conduct business transaction, quote, access insurance and treatment, book trips, still quoting, go through border control between countries or regions, still quoting, access third-party services that rely on social media logins, file taxes, vote, collect benefits, end quote.
It may not look like it, but I'm creating one of the strongest and most versatile materials on Earth, graphene. You've probably heard buzz about it. Graphene made big waves back in 2004, and it's knocked around science news ever since.
A global race for graphene.
You know, it's not just limited to one little thing.
One
it
of the
seems to be
greatest discoveries
Graphene
of the
could
21st
be
century.
the
Key to a lot of mind-blowing technology.
But that was almost 15 years ago. Where are all of the graphene wonders that we were promised?
Hello everyone, I'm just connecting the dots here, and I think I've got some really big information that really ties things together, because we've got a major link with Elon Musk's neural lace and graphene. Yeah, this is Elon Musk's neural link, neuro lace. His neural lace is graphene. Yeah, for his brain interface, which he's been going on about since 2016. It's happening now.
Going to be quite important. And there's not, I don't know of a company that's working on it seriously, is a neural lace, but your limbic system, your cortex, and then a digital layer, sort of a third layer above the cortex. Fundamental limitation is input-output. So we already have, we're already a cyborg, faced directly with your cortical neurons particularly.
But doesn't that imply surgical insertion?
Not necessarily. You could go through the veins and arteries, because that provides...
Imply surgical insertion?
Not necessarily. You could go through the veins and arteries.
Imply surgical insertion?
Not necessarily. You could go through the veins and arteries.
You can go through the veins and arteries. Does that... You know, no one's picked up on it. So this is what's happening.
What we are trying to develop are neural interfaces, a new generation of neural interfaces based on graphene.
Yeah, and his Neuralink brain interface, guess what is the brain interface? Yeah, it's graphene. It's graphene, and his Neuralace is what is graphene? It's like lace. It's like a lace mesh.
Graphene, a wonder material that is just one atom thick, is strong, highly flexible, electrically conductive, and transparent. making it ideal for interpreting complex patterns of neural activity.
So the idea is to be able to record the activity in the motor cortex related to the articulation, to the speech, and being able to decode that signal.
Okay, Pulse 9, neural lace and programmable cells. 2017. We scroll down here. Flexible graphene probes record brain activity in high resolution. Researchers associated with the Graphene Flagship project of the European Union have developed flexible devices based on graphene field effect transistors for recording brain activity in high resolution. The research work, published in 2D materials, shows that arrays of 16 graphene-based transistors, each with an active area less than the cross-section of a human hair, arranged on a flexible substrate and placed on the surface of the brain, permit recording of neural activity by detecting electric fields generated when neurons fire. The researchers suggest that this technology could lay the foundation for future generations of in vivo implants with therapeutic brain stimulation and technologies and interfaces for sensory and motor devices. Okay, so the prospect of visionary technologies like Musk's neural lace. Well, like I say, that is a graphene, and he's just told us excuse me, he's told us, perhaps by accident here, but it's very clear what he means when it's going through the arteries and veins. It's obviously vaccinations, obviously. That's what we know it's doing. It's targeting the brain. We know this. The magnetic effect is targeting the brain. This is graphene oxide is one of the key components used in Elon Musk's neural lace Neuralink project, which aims to connect the human brain to AI.
Suit compromised.
Nanotechnology. You've outdone yourself, Peter. I underestimated you. But now you die.
Brought to you by Pfizer.
What's happening?
New device detected. Pairing new device.
You don't listen to him. You listen to me.
Hey.
Whoa.
Hey! Until you stop trying to kill me, I'm in control, buddy.
The focus, as all of you know, today is on what's now called the Internet of Bodies, involving medical implants and other kinds of devices that go inside your body and all together with the Internet as a whole comprise the Internet of Bodies.
The Internet of Bodies, or IOB, is actually an ecosystem. It's a bunch of devices that are connected to the Internet that contain software and that either collect personal health data about you or can alter the body's function. We think of the Internet of Bodies as this collection of all these devices.
Is Drake buddies with Klaus Schwab? I'll tell you why I'm asking that in a moment. Here's a picture of Drake with a cool haircut. Here's a quote from Drake. If you sell your soul to the devil, you will get more grain. Okay, dude. But the reason I ask if he's buddies with Klaus Schwab is because he's opened a new nightclub in Toronto called History, which is ironic because this nightclub is completely digital and cashless. They don't accept cash. Everything will be done through credit cards or apps on your phone. Now someone might say, but dude, that's convenient. And then I ask you to look into the agenda for 2030, where cash is banned, everything is digital. If you speak out about your one world government, your bank account is shut off. That's where things are going. Celebrities are promoting this because they are forced or have volunteered.
What's that thing you say, Olaf?
Oh, my theory about advancing technologies is both our savior and our doom?
One of the features of this fourth industrial revolution is that it doesn't change what we are doing, but it changes us.
The difference of this fourth industrial revolution is it doesn't change what you are doing. it changes you. If you take genetic editing, just as an example, it's you who are changed. And of course, this has a big impact on your identity.
Editing your genes? Cool. I'll explain that later. But first, why do so many people consider this guy, Klaus Schwab, to be the most dangerous man in the world? Well, there's some reasons. A lot of them. But my favorite economic forum speaker of all time is this reptile, Klaus Schwab's top advisor, Dr. Yuval Noah Harari. Let's see what he has to say.
Data might enable human elites to do something even more radical than just build digital dictatorships. By hacking organisms, elites may gain the power to re-engineer the future of life itself. Because once you can hack something, you can usually also engineer it.
Elites hacking organisms and re-engineering life itself? Well, he's not talking about doing that to people, is he?
Now, in the past, many tyrants and governments wanted to do it, but nobody understood biology well enough, and nobody had enough computing power and data to hack millions of people. Neither the Gestapo nor the KGB could do it. But soon, at least some corporations and governments will be able to systematically hack all the people.
Well, I guess he was talking about doing that to people. All people, to be specific.
And if indeed we succeed in hacking and engineering life, this will be not just the greatest revolution in the history of humanity. This will be the greatest revolution in biology since the very beginning of life 4 billion years ago. For 4 billion years, nothing fundamental changed.
Not playing God, are you? Because that usually works out super well.
At the age of 33, Klaus Schwab, a business professor at the University of Geneva, founded the World Economic Forum in 1971, originally known as the European Management Forum. Nicknamed Davos after its annual meeting place, the World Economic Forum meets every January with hundreds of members of business, politics, banking, education, and industry to, quote, improve the state of the world. Their globalist agenda is openly admitted and well documented. United Nations Agenda 2030, the Great Reset, Build Back Better, are all the same globalist agenda, and all stem from the Club of Rome and the eugenics movement. Davos claims to be looking to save the planet, and the UN claim that in 10 years they will end all hunger and poverty on Earth. They admit that the technologies required to achieve these goals do not exist, and yet their solution is to bring the world to zero emissions in only 10 years. They want to end the automobile and aviation industries in only 10 years. This is why the Keystone Pipeline was halted on day one by globalist puppet Joe Biden. Klaus Schwab says that industries which involve human interaction will not survive.
But we know that many industries which rely particularly on physical interaction will have difficulties to survive.
As if the destruction of an entire functioning society will inspire solutions to all of our problems, thereby bringing about an environmental utopia where there is no hunger and all the world is at peace. As absurd as this all sounds, we know the sheep will accept it as gospel. They already have. When the WHO was caught faking a hoax 10 years ago, the media reported it, but nobody cared. It was a beta test. Now, the media ignores overwhelming evidence that COVID-19 is a hoax. They go along with every contradiction and lie, and their audience obediently accepts it all as truth. The COVID crisis will be used to imprison the population, whether it be in camps or their own home. It is already happening. Humanity is being imprisoned by psychopaths who see themselves as our saviors. Order out of chaos. The New World Order is nothing other than the decrepit Old World Order desperately clinging to power. And their solution is to destroy the free market, to destroy the concept of freedom, privacy, and private property, and to foment enough chaos and destruction to depopulate the earth into a manageable level of serfs and slaves, so they can continue on with the same old scams they've been running for millennia. This is why Joe Biden signed a dozen executive orders, paving the way to opening the borders and shutting down the economy. The New World Order cannot coexist with American civil liberties. And now that the populist movement has been discarded, the destruction of America from within can commence again. If the people of the world continue to comply to these unelected sycophants, then the people will get what they deserve.
There's the possibility that in the future, you could still talk to the people you love forever. If you upload the human mind into a computer, you could create a copy of yourself as an avatar. Now, your family might still be able to have conversations with you, even though you no longer exist in the material world anymore, but in digital space. In some sense, a part of you has become immortal. So clearly, we are entering a world where we can transcend space and time and even our own mortality. So let's go travel into the future.
I'm going to work like the devil to bring gas prices down, which I'm going to working to make sure that we keep strengthening the supply chains to bring the cost of energy and everything else and the goods that come to America.
I'm going to work like the devil to bring gas prices down, which I'm going to...
The reason I'm calling today is to express my disappointment that you have invited this highly sophisticated crackpot and given him a national forum to express his pseudo-religious predictions that have no basis in objective reality.
If you go back 500 years, not much happened in a century. Now a lot happens in 6 months. Technology feeds on itself and it gets faster and faster. It's going to continue. In about 40 years, it's going to be moving so fast, the pace of change is going to be so astonishingly quick that you won't be able to follow it unless you enhance your own intelligence by merging with the intelligent technology we're creating.
This guy is freaky. He says computers will have consciousness in just 25 years.
If you get to the 2030s, you're not going to be able to tell a clear difference between human and machine intelligence.
The big questions of life is who are we? What are we going to become? What's the future like? And he's got one of the most incredible track records in history for his ability to predict with pretty darn good accuracy.
He's an award-winning scientist and engineer, a millionaire several times over because of his inventions.
Baker's wild.
These inventions may end up causing the worst war that humanity's ever had.
Corporations and governments and societies will be created and destroyed on the back of the technology that this book describes.
The world is flattening. The world that is globalizing.
Inventor Ray Kurzweil thinks that one day humans may be able to live forever.
I want to live as long as I can. I don't want to die. If following Ray's regimen would put that day off, I'm very willing to do that.
I knew there was a reason I was keeping all this stuff, and he kept all this stuff. I do plan to bring back my father.
God is who he is, and our challenge should be to know him, not try to create him.
I'm afraid of you.
It's going to scare a lot of people.
The world is changing far too fast. Nothing like this has ever happened to Homo sapiens before.
These ideas are going to ultimately change the world. We didn't stay on the ground, we didn't stay on the planet, we didn't stay with the limitations of our biology.
I think Ray is performing the service of a prophet. That's wrong.
He has used the gift that he was given for the betterment of humankind. That's what I knew.
It will be the universe waking up.
I mean, I think the phenomenal change that's come about in the last 2-3 years is there probably isn't a child over the age of 6 that isn't deeply concerned about climate change. I mean, there were reports in the past, but now the focus of the world are on those problems, whether it's droughts, whether it's storms, whether it's the seaside being ruined, just undermining life.
Everything. And in a way, Corona has slightly, I'm afraid, eclipsed the importance of this conversation. No one's saying Corona isn't incredibly devastating, but actually we do need to think long-term about the planet.
Yeah, and it's a distraction, well, more than a distraction, it's a tragedy, but it does have that knock-on effect. Distraction.
I want to get a little into the weeds here and the mRNA technology. When you and your colleagues were trying to decide which route to go down, the traditional vaccine route or the mRNA route, you write that it was, quote, most counterintuitive to go the mRNA route, and yet you went that route. Explain why.
It was counterintuitive because Pfizer was mastering, or let's say we had very good experience and expertise with multiple technologies that could give a vaccine. Adenoviruses, that some of the other vaccines are. We were very good in doing that. Protein vaccines, we were very good in doing that, and plus many other technologies. The mRNA was the technology that we had less experience, only 2 years working on this. And actually, mRNA was a technology that never delivered a single product until that day. Not vaccine, not any other medicine. So it was very counterintuitive, and I was surprised when they suggested to me that this is the way to go. And I questioned it, and I asked them to justify, how can you say something like that? But they came and they were very, very convinced that this is the right way to go. They felt that the 2 years of work on mRNA since 2018, together with BioNTech, to develop a flu vaccine, made them believe that the technology is mature and we are at the cusp of delivering a product. So they convinced me. I follow my instinct that they know what they are saying, they're very good, and we made this very difficult decision at that time.
Они тоже весьма современными и на сегодняшний день, без всякого сомнения, являются наиболее надежными и наиболее безопасными. Как сказал один из европейских специалистов, надежные и как автомат Калашникова. Это не мы сказали, это сказал один из европейских специалистов, и я думаю, что он, безусловно, прав. Просты и надежны, как автомат Калашникова.
Being vaccinated is our only way out of this nightmare, and it is a bit of a nightmare with the rolling lockdowns.
Aren't you guys tired of being locked down without being told why?
Yeah! Yes! Not at all.
We've been kept in the dark long enough. Are we gonna take it anymore?
No! No! Absolutely.
But obviously we need the supply of vaccines, and they are coming. And my friend Josh Burns, a member for McNamara, has an op-ed in today's Australian that takes us through really the process and the history of how we've arrived at this place where we don't really have enough vaccines. But I'm also hearing, Tom, anecdotally, but there has been reporting on this up and down the eastern seaboard, that the appointment process, so the ability, the process to make an appointment to get vaccinated, is not good, and it's a bit of a mess. So I think that needs to be improved. But once those vaccines are here, people should seek to be vaccinated. Normally in a democracy, the state does not force its citizens to be vaccinated because obviously we respect the rights of the individual, but also in a democracy we seek to balance freedoms of the individual with what is the benefit to the majority of a society. So hence a decision, for example, about
mandatory vaccinations for aged care workers.
Imprimatur said, a
trillion over 20 years is saved. So when we're having this discussion, it's important to dispel some of those who say, well, it's the government spending. No, it isn't. The government spending is doing the exact reverse, reducing the national debt. It is not inflationary, A. B, we don't want to reduce the increase in jobs, which we're very proud of. This president breaking records, his historic numbers of jobs created in the first year of his term in office, and a lot of it traced to the American Recovery Act. But yeah, it's we're paying very close attention to it.
Good morning. Sunday morning.
So it's without even going into what they told us was Russian disinformation is actually true. How concerned are you that Torian Nuland, who's overseeing this war, has just admitted there are unsecure bioagents, dangerous bioagents in Ukraine?
I'm extremely concerned, as should be every American and everyone in the world. The seriousness of this situation really can't be overstated. First of all, she didn't say no when she was asked by Marco Rubio about there being biological or chemical weapons in Ukraine. So if there were or are, obviously that would be a violation of the Biological Weapons Convention. Number two, they're categorically been trying to hide this, as you've laid out very, very well. And then once they were found out, rather than saying, hey, you know what, this is a critical emergency, it's a crisis, we have these pathogens in the midst of a war zone, not just in one location, but between 20 and 30 labs in Ukraine. This is a global crisis, we're going to take action immediately. This is how a responsible leader would react given the crisis of this moment. But instead, what did they do? Her response to Senator Rubio was immediately start pointing fingers. We're going to preemptively start the blame game should anything happen to these pathogens and who knows what is going on in these labs. Before anything bad happens, just say, you know what, it's the bad guys. It's the bad guys who are responsible for this. It is the height of irresponsibility. Their response to this, the fact that they're covering it up, the fact that they aren't doing really what needs to be done. Because unless this war in Ukraine ends right now, ends tonight, we face a very real certainty that one or more of these labs will be compromised, will be breached, and it won't just be the people of Ukraine who are impacted. We could face another global crisis when you look at a pathogen that could be released. We just went through this with COVID. We can't have forgotten this already.
With a growing graveyard real estate crunch and the desire to go green, many people are plotting other after-death options. Jocelyn Monette wants to protect the environment in death as much as she does in life. To that end, she doesn't want to be buried or cremated.
I don't want fossil fuel to be part of my journey out of this world.
I just cannot believe any of this voodoo bullshit.
Instead, Monette wants her remains handled using a system called aquamation.
There's no fire, there's no smoke, there's nothing. It's just a stainless steel vessel with water gently flowing over the body.
The scientific name of the process is alkaline hydrolysis. The body goes into a purpose-built unit. Water, heat, sodium, and potassium are used to break down its proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. The leftover bones can be fragmented and put into an urn. The effluent put down the drain. Aquamation simply dissolves the body.
LifeSite News covered this. It's Wisconsin has joined 20 other states in legalizing the liquefying of dead humans and flushing them down the municipal sewer system. And if you know from my research in the past, those then liquefied dead humans, many of whom died from the vaccine, of course, are being turned into biosludge and then spread on the crops as a form of fertilizer. So we have entered the realm now in 2021. This is not an exaggeration. It's all confirmed, double vetted, verified, that people killed by vaccines are dissolved into liquid, flushed down the drain, concentrated into biosludge, and spread on the food crops. Owen, this is like the Matrix. They are feeding the dead to the living. It's all 100% confirmed, and it's happening now in 2021.
This is just unbelievable. A new angle to where the world is going.
You don't understand. I've got proof. They need proof.
I've seen it. I've seen it happening. They've got to tell people.
Tell them what?
The ocean's dying. Plankton's dying. It's people. Soylent Green is made out of people.
All of these things are a result of children not being in school. It's not good for them. Well, look at Alpha.
I was just going to mention Arthur's name, actually. I mean, we know, and it was part of the findings in the trial, that Arthur was partly a victim of lockdown. He may have survived the hideous treatment he received had people not been locked down. His own uncle was reported for breaking lockdown rules for trying to save that little boy's life. Now, we know there are 10,000 children missing now. They've just gone AWOL, who were in social care, who were being monitored at school. To close down schools again, it's not just messing with kids' education, it's messing with vulnerable children's lives. And I don't want another Arthur. I mean, it's just heartbreaking.
Question et commentaire, questions and comments. The Honourable Member for Oshawa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I listened to my colleague's speech. I had a constituent that wanted me to ask a question about outside interference to our democracy. Klaus Schwab is the head of the World Economic Forum, and he bragged how his subversive WEF, World Economic Forum, has, quoted, infiltrated governments around the world. He said that his organization had penetrated more than half of Canada's cabinet. And I was wondering, in the interest of transparency, could the member please name which cabinet ministers are on board with the WEF's agenda? My concern is the deputy.
Order. I know he was. I know that the member was in a really good question there, but the audio is really bad, and the video is really bad as well. And I apologize. I don't know if the member. Okay, let's try again. The honourable member for Timmins James Bay.
Mr. Speaker, that member was promoting open disinformation. That's not debate. We have to call out disinformation.
We'll get into debate again.
Actually, this notion to integrate young leaders is part of the World Economic Forum since many years. And I have to say, when I mention now names like Ms. Merkel, even Vladimir Putin and so on, they all have been young global leaders of the World Economic Forum. Mm-hmm. But what we are very proud of now, the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina and so on, that we penetrate the cabinets. So yesterday I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I know that half of this cabinet, or even more, half of this cabinet, are actually young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
All right, cicadas, look, soon going to be buzzing around everywhere in our area. Going to be fun.
This was inevitable. One expert at Johns Hopkins says they make cicadas, that is, for a very tasty and eco-friendly meal. Stetson Miller has this for us.
Cicadas will soon be crawling all over Maryland, trillions of them in our backyards and trees. And believe it or not, that means a lot of opportunities to try out a new snack, according to one Johns Hopkins professor.
They're a lot like shrimp. They're like tree shrimp.
Sustainable food expert Jessica Fonzo is planning to collect and eat cicadas herself, and wants you to know that they're a great source of protein and also great for the environment.
We're in the middle of climate change. Insects, they are a great alternative source to other animal source foods, which, for example, cows, which are producing a lot of greenhouse gas emissions.
If you're brave enough to try one, she says you should pick out the nymphs while they're still white, the ones that have just come out of the ground, and only eat the females. You can then freeze them in a bag, and then when you're ready to eat, boil them first for 2 minutes and then cook them to your liking.
You can roast them in the oven, put some salt and pepper on there, some Old Bay seasoning on them.
You need protein.
You took stuff from the car, right? Maybe there is some real food there.
Take a look at yourself.
Have you ever considered how fortunate you are? You got a good job. You live in a great pod. You have health insurance that allows you and Rachel to have a beautiful baby girl. It's a good life, Jack. And you know all you have to do to keep it? Find someone else to hold accountable for this mess. Masks are not sufficient. We need vaccines to immunize ourselves. The same is true for cyber attacks. Here too, we have to move from simple protection to immunization. We need to build IT infrastructures that have digital antibodies built in inherently to protect themselves.
Insects could soon become a normal part of your pet's diet. The creepy crawlies are full of protein and are becoming a go-to item on pet store shelves.
Feeding your furry friend cockroaches, crickets and flies would once have been far-fetched, but insect protein is shaking up the multi-billion-dollar pet food industry.
I get the squeamish factor, but what we make is actually delicious.
The main ingredient in Martin Pike's pet treats, black soldier fly larvae, boasting the same nutritional value as meat and fish.
It takes a fraction of the resources to grow a pound of crickets as it does a pound of beef. And so the amount of water it takes, the greenhouse gas emissions that it emits compared to the livestock, the amount of land that's required, the amount of feed that's required, there are so many factors that just lead to, this is kind of smart.
What we know is that we will end up with many more unemployed and particularly also people in the grey economy, which are not counted for, who lose their jobs. So we will see definitively a lot of anger already now, but probably increased by the end of the year, because this crisis will be with us until we really have found a remedy. So we have to prepare for a more angry world. The young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, half of this cabinet, are actually young global leaders of the world economy. We penetrate the cabinets. The change is not just happening. The change can be shaped by us. We have to prepare for a more angry world. How to prepare? Takes the necessary action to create a fairer world. I see the need for a great reset. So people assume we are just going back to the good old world which we had, and everything will be normal again. This is, let's say, fiction. It will not happen.
There is only one way this pandemic is going to go. It's going to get worse and worse and worse.
The next crisis is already waiting for us around the corner, and it is the climate crisis.